Yeah, good things that are today we're presenting uh test two, which is basically required requires us to implement authentication, authorization, and rules in our API. Authentication it's basically just the API or the server, wants to verify the identity of a user or the service, that's actually trying to access its resources. For authorization. It basically wants to determine their access rights. So for authorization, it basically wants to see if I do have the permissions to access that specific resource. As for authentication, it basically just wants to verify who am I and who is basically using their server resource. And cross is just a cross origin resource, and this basically allow us to access their API from the web, from basically just using the curl command, postman, and all of those things. Um, so yeah, if we basically go into authentication, we have basically set up some of the endpoints. We basically would need to register a user. So I could just go demonstrate with that right now. Go around and yep. Just 1 second. And then, yes. So as how I was saying, if we basically go ahead and try to um authenticate the user, so there's the endpoint. If we check our endpoints, we have the authentication, which basically, we would pass our token, we would pass our username and password. And if we try to authenticate someone that either doesn't exist or um we could change this and then click close to the password, and then we would actually want to generate their token. We would see that the credential are invalid, and thus we are not given an authenticated token to access specific resources. For instance, right here, I basically uh for all except this one, they're basically you cannot access. So for instance, yeah, so for this you could basically access it, but for this one, no. This. So if we try to do a then yeah, so we could see basically we must be authenticated to access it. So we could basically just do a forum rather than trying to filter it. We could basically say that we need to be authenticated. So in order for us to be authenticated, either one, we need to be a registered user, or two, we would need to get registered. So if we check right here, this is a new user. The email hasn't been used in our database, and then we could set this one. And then as we can see, the account is not activated. Why? Because we need to verify that the account that their email is the one they're actually being using. Yeah, so as we can see, the email has come through, and then would basically need to do a put, and then enter a user to activate it. So before that, we would need to set the token. And if we check again, we would need this specific token, and then we would need to set the body with the token. So if we do this, and then let's try to activate it. So our app would basically just find the token and then just set the pass it through. And then as you can see, basically we're now set and we could basically from right here we could uh create a new token. So if we try to now get a token from this specific user, then we would basically get the token. And if we basically check our routes, let's basically this one and see if activate. If we basically check the register, we can see that we're only giving this specific user the read permission. And if we do go ahead and cross check in our database, so I could basically say this, and it would be John Doe. For example, this one could basically say that he's only given the read permission, even though we have a write permission. So this specific user won't be able to write into our database, won't be able to reply to delete or edit any forums. So if we now go ahead and we try to access if we try to access basically just like how we did previously. So in this case we will need to set up the token. Basically set this. So it's this one, set this. And we try to basically do a curl. They get and basically all of the forums. We can see now that we are now given access to read. In this case, just to get all of the forums. But just like how I mentioned, right here is where basically we dictated that this user will not be able to write anything into our database if we try to update one. So as we can see, the the last one, the last form that was basically posted is ID9. So if we basically try to edit that one, with basically your user account does not have the required permission to access this source. So we basically just a few minutes ago I was basically talked about authentication, and then the authentication is basically just passing the token, but at the same time the token would dictate the author the permissions the user has. In this case, which we are now transitioning from authentication to authorization. We basically using the token, you could basically fetch the user's permission. In this case, the user only has access to read. He cannot write a new forum. So we could basically create a new forum. If we go into the route and he tries to post her dash x post, and then he tries basically to post. And as you can see over again, your user account does not have the required permissions, so the user cannot create a new form. Why? Because right here we have basically declared that the user needs a write permission. But just like how I said, there's two users that have both read and write. So if we basically try to get a token from this user, in this case, I have their credentials right here. It should be this one. So it's this one, and then we basically try to generate a new one. And then, yeah, so we would get your token, and then if we set the token right here, and then set it back. And once we set it, we could basically check if we could update. If we try, first, let's post a new one on. You could do a curl dash x and then post a new one. As we can see, we basically have been granted and since we have the permission to it, you could basically post a new form. And if we try to update that one, and you could say update it, and then yeah, and then remove this one. But before that, we could basically do a curl. You could basically try to get all of the forms so we could see that our one that we created is right here. And if we can see, this is still doesn't have the updated right here. But if we do try to do a curl dash x dot patch, in this case it will be form 11. As we can see, this it was successful. And then if we try to reload if we reload them, if we get all of the forums again, we could basically see that this has indeed been updated. So we do have the right permission, and with the right permissions, we could basically go ahead and delete the forum if we wanted to. So we could do 11, and then as you can see, forum has been successfully deleted. Um, but if we try to I did not do this with the other one. If we try and it's this one, so this is the token, and then if we try to delete what I could fetch all of the 9. So if we try to delete 9, um, yeah, so the reason why this was successful because which we set the body rather than the token. So if we do a token, and if we check all of the pages again, we don't have access. But if we go right here, we could basically try and delete it 6. Um, we could do 6, and then yeah, like we didn't test this one, but if we check it here, invalid or missing out um token. But yeah. So that basically would cover authentication and authorization. And if you now move on um to the cruise, at the moment I changed it a bit. If we basically go right here and check our middleware, at the moment I'm basically allowing everything to have access to the tower of header. So if we um it's basically running, and if we go ahead and check the demo you basically provided there. The simple script, if we go run 4040, like this. As you can see, basically we have access to that. We could basically change the port to, let's say, 9000. We will need to change our port when we do have access. But let's say if we did not have this either. So if I go into routes, and then I could basically remove run all CORS. I would this case, I will need to restart my server. So yeah, so it's gonna be running again, and if I try to reaccess it, you could basically see that that the request was indeed successful. A 2000 status code is successful, but if we check right here, access to fetch localhost 4000 version one health check with basically right here from origin has been blocked by CORS policies. No access no access control allowed origin headers is present. So basically what this means is that we did not specify uh what um what ports can access our endpoint. So this was the reason why we had it grant all, but this could basically uh in security terms could be bad. So in that case, what we could do, we would only allow certain ports to access uh our endpoint. In this case, we would basically use the enable course, and in this case, we would basically we have set a flag. If we check our code our code, we basically set it a cruise and then an array. And if we check this one, we can see right here that we have set a function, in this case a flag that function, which the function would parse of course by space delimiters parse all of the ports that are allowed. So of course we would return an error, and this specific line would basically like just like in how in JavaScript we would throw an error, this would throw an error, basically return it. So that's why we are not check in with an if, and then if error is not nil, and return and the error. So this line basically does that. But what this would do is basically parse all of our endpoints. So we basically trying to do that. In this case, what you could do is provide the port 4040, since we're using 4000 for this demo, and we could basically allow the port 9090. So we're running on port 4000, and then we want to allow port 4040, and then 9090. So with this flag, this will basically trigger this one, and this would basically parse. And once we do that, we would then be able to use our function enable cross, and this would basically set the allow course origin for this specific endpoints. So if we run it, and if we go ahead, just like before, I basically demonstrated that we if we have enabled our course, we could basically access it from any port. But when I disable it, we could not access it from any port. But if we go ahead and then we specify specific ports, as we can see, we cannot access this from any other port other than this. So if we go ahead right here and then set the port to 1990 and change this one to 1990, we could basically see that this is now enabled. And the same would happen with 4040. And then if we change our ports 4040, we could see that we now have access. But let's say we want to access it from port 9000, just rather than 9000 and 9060. And then we change this to 9060. We can see that we're basically blocked. And yeah, that will basically cover all of it for course. I think I could basically discuss in the email number 7 what I basically learned everything. Everything was it has proven useful to me. I actually learned a lot from APIs. I've the way I previously did, I basically did I forced my front end to do all of the backend work, which I have now realized that that has not that that should not be the case, and I have now seen how useful an API could be. And areas in the API that you would like to research on further. In this case, at the moment, I do not have any topics. Uh, um, if there's one thing, I don't, I don't think I have any other questions. Well, I think the only area I would definitely want to research further would be deploying my API to the web server and actually accessing it from the web server rather than doing it with Docker locally. That's one area in which I would definitely wish we could have more time to do that. But time basically ran out on us, and yeah, yeah. Thank you, Don. Have a nice day.